official broadcast partner of the Premier League, Talk Sport.
On the way in about 20 minutes' time on TalkSport Extra Time, it's Worldwide Weird, and it's the turn of the Flat Earthers to try and convince you this morning. But right now, with the time at exactly 3 a.m, here with your news headlines, let's welcome back James Lure.
Thanks, Paul. The Prime Minister has addressed MPs for the first time since the Supreme Court found his suspension of Parliament was unlawful.
This Parliament must either stand aside and let this government get Brexit done, or bring a vote of confidence and finally face the day of reckoning with the voters. And I commend this statement to the House.
He says there could be a vote later which could trigger a general election, but Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn wants one thing first.
He says he wants a general election. I want a general election. It's very simple. If you want an election, get an extension and let's have an election.
Elsewhere, Donald Trump says he's owed an apology after opposition politicians launched an impeachment inquiry against him. He's released a summary of a phone call he made to the Ukrainian leader in which he asked for help to investigate a political rival. Wales international Tom Lawrence and his Derby teammate Mason Bennett have been charged with drink driving. Officers were called to a crash between two cars. And thousands of Rangers fans turned out to pay their respects to Fernando Rickson. The defender has been laid to rest in Glasgow following his death at the age of 43 last week.
Extra Time with Paul Ross on Talk Sport.
It is TalkSport Extra Time with me, Paul Ross, and Sam Stevens. And coming up in about 10 minutes' time, we're going to be talking, as part of our Worldwide Weird spot, to somebody who believes, like the boxer who was on the front page of a couple of papers earlier this week, Carl Frock, who says the Earth is flat. He's accused NASA of faking photographs to keep us guessing the whole of the world's population into thinking it's a globe, that it's round. He's a former world super middleweight champion, so I'm not going to argue with him at all. I'm going to keep an open mind on this one, Sam Stevens.
Are you actually, though? You're gonna think that Carl Froch is talking sense here.
Luckily, we've not got Carl Froch on. Yes. If you are listening, Mr. Froch, you're a handsome, intelligent man, and I agree with you 100%. If you're not listening, you're bonkers.
Well, let's find out, I suppose, in a minute or two, whether or not the Earth is indeed flat, as we suspect it might not be. But there we go. Because
our guest has been seen on and I've watched the documentary a while ago. It's very good, and it is slightly Louis Theroux-ish, but it's a Netflix documentary called Behind the Curve. Mark Sargent, one of the world's leading flat earthers, joins us on TalkSport Extra Time in about 10 minutes' time.
Excellent. Well, I look forward to finding out what he's all about. Apparently that documentary is very good, yeah, like you just say. Apparently it's very
I mean, the notion is that we're more like a kind of frisbee, and photos are taken from a certain angle. I mean, the problem is, for me, is like with those people who don't think we landed on the moon. The number of people who have to be involved in that conspiracy and to keep absolutely stum would fill Wembley Stadium 10 times over. And as we know, I think Benjamin Franklin, the founding father of the USA, said, any fact known to two people, any secret known to two people, ain't no secret.
Well, it's fair
Somebody
point.
Always coughs.
I mean, the thing for me is that when you see a rocket taking off, and you see behind it, you often see the camera down, and you can see the Earth behind it.
But they say they use a convex or concave lens on the camera, and they distort. You know, it's like when you look in the back of a spoon.
Yes, that's what they're
I think it's slightly more technically advanced than looking at the back of a spoon.
Yeah.
Well, you shouldn't mock till we've given the guy a fair hearing. So that's a Worldwide Weird coming up in about 10 minutes' time. Also coming up in this hour's time, I'm looking forward to this, after that stunning turnabout victory, Uruguay against Fiji. We're going to be talking to a rugby journalist from Uruguay, a postcard from Uruguay about that sensational win, and what's the country like? It's actually got a very small population, I think, Uruguay.
Very small population. I want to say something like 8 million, something like that. That rings a bell. It's certainly I think it's the smallest population to win the World Cup, which I think would have been taken by Croatia had they beaten France last year in 2018. I think that was the thing that kept coming up, that stat about Croatia being the sort of lowest population to reach at that point of the competition. So yeah, it's an interesting country that I know not that much about, really. So
it's going to be corrected in 20 minutes' time. Postcard from Uruguay on the way, but let's take a look at the back pages and the front pages of some of today's papers. Not surprisingly, lots of comment on the Premier League teams crashing out of the Carabao Cup. Hammer horror is the back page of the Daily Telegraph Sports supplement. Oxford United 4, gulp. West Ham 0, and pathetic is the verdict of the Sun on Man United, who needed penalties, they say, to beat Rochdale. They then go on to say, rubbing salt into my wound, hammers thrashed and lights out on cherries. Bournemouth, of course, beaten very convincingly as well.
Yes, by Burton, and that was in a game that was halted 3 times by floodlight failure, which ended up meaning that Jeff Peters was hanging around for quite a long time, longer than he probably was expecting this evening. But there we go. In the end,
28 minutes. Yeah.
28 minutes of added time, yeah, because of the floodlight failures. But Burton in the end going through, and as Simon Watts pointed out earlier on, Burton of course got to the semi-final last year before they were handsomely dumped out by Manchester City. But even so, an amazing achievement to get to the semi-final. Again, the giant killings have started again, and they've beaten Bournemouth, and they're through to the next round where they will play Leicester. The 2 big stories, really, the ones that are making up the main bulk of the back pages, are a dreadful performance by West Ham, certainly in the second half, to see them lose 4-0 against Oxford. I mean, losing
all 4 goals in the second half.
All 4 in the second half, which you'd expect actually that the Premier League team would be stronger in the second half as the lower league team tires a little bit. But as it was the lower league team that got the second wind and managed to score 4 goals, and amazingly score 4 goals really. But this is not new for West Ham. You know, they've got previous with this, having gone out in the FA Cup last year to AFC Wimbledon 4-2, going out again. I think there's 3 seasons in a row now they've gone down to lower league opposition in the Carabao Cup, and lost to Wigan as well, as Josh just said to me in my ear. So yeah, it's a shocking set of affairs for West Ham really. 4-0. A drubbing, and questions have to be asked really for them after the great success at the weekend against Man United in the league as to why they're not taking the cup competitions a bit more seriously. You would think that with an added squad and having a bit more strength in depth and all that kind of stuff, that West Ham, even though Oxford made changes, would have enough to see them off, but as it proved, it wasn't. And likewise, the other the team that are making the back pages, and rightly so for all the wrong reasons, are Manchester United. Now, you could argue that perhaps Rochdale should be making the back pages, and some papers they are talking
certainly
about.
The back page of the Times got Luke Matheson's photograph,
Absolutely.
16 years old, got that scorcher in the last 4 or 5 minutes of the game.
Yeah, deservedly so. 16-year-old Luke Matheson, as Paul just said there, scoring the equaliser in that game for Rochdale. Amazingly, Rochdale, after 90 minutes, held the formerly mighty Manchester United my team to a draw, and deserved it on the night as well. Played very well, created a couple of chances, had one cleared off the line by Aaron Wan-Bissaka a little bit earlier on, and got United all the way out to penalties, and unfortunately they missed 1 penalty. So Manchester United do go through, where they play Chelsea in the next round. That'll be formidable opposition. Chelsea obviously one of the elite teams in the Premier League, and also they handsomely saw off Grimsby 7-1. I mean, you don't see too many 7-1s, do you, at any level really, but Chelsea thrashing their way past Grimsby.
That's a long trip out from Grimsby and a trip back up for the fans to be on the receiving end of a 7-1 hammering.
It's one of those ones, isn't it, for fans of teams like Grimsby, where you think to yourself, are you grateful for the day out, or actually do you think to yourself, well, that was a complete waste of time even to be playing against an elite team, because you've travelled, like you say, Paul, all that way, to only then find you've got to go back on the coach in a long way back. You're going to not be getting home until probably, I would imagine, some Grimsby fans are just about getting home maybe now, and probably have to get up for work in the morning having lost 7-1. So, yeah, good day out or whatever, but you'd rather not lose 7-1 if you're going to be playing one of these bigger teams. But sometimes that's just the way that it goes. That's the way that it should really go, to be honest, because, you know, we're talking about multi-millionaire players who no matter who steps into a team, to a squad, playing in these games from the Premier League teams, they should be beating the lower league teams. But as we know in cup competitions and with the attitude of certain players, it doesn't always work out. And so Man United nearly coming unstuck, just about going through, and the back page is reflecting their anguish and Rochdale's potential almost glory, and West Ham's failings against Oxford as well. They're the 2 main Carabao Cup stories from last night.
Back page of the Times, crackdown on football's Wild West. FIFA to curb payments for greedy agents. And we learnt earlier on in the programme that last year Premier League clubs spent £260 million on agents, more than 18% of the £1.4 billion spent on transfers. Paul Pogba's agent is singled out for opprobrium, as I think they say. His name is Mino Raiola. When Pogba moved to Manchester United back in 2016, he was the catalyst, apparently, for these new rules, because he moved from Juventus for £89 million. Raiola was paid a total of £41 million because he represented both clubs as well as the player in the deal. Juventus paid him £23 million. United paid him £16 million, and they got another £2.2 million from the player himself.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about astronomical numbers, aren't we, involved in these massive transfers.
Somebody taking the arrant, extracting the urine and taking the Michael.
Yeah, and actually it's one of the reasons why a lot of these deals don't get done at the moment is because I think clubs are aware that they have to pay agents so much of the share that they're not really getting value for money because they're paying, 30 or 40 million quid for agents. We've got a couple of...
If you're acting for Juventus and Man United, you're having meetings with yourself, haggling with yourself, and earning over £40 million for yourself.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? It truly is that. It's
Take that. Oh, sorry, have that.
Yeah.
Can we shake hands on it? Deal done.
Deal done, yeah. And it says here, football's money men, Mino Raiola, as you pointed out, made 41 million from Pogba's move to Man United in 2016. He wanted 20% of Matthijs de Ligt's move from Ajax to Juventus. Jorge Mendes, or George Mendes, I should say, 'cause he's Portuguese. Cristiano Ronaldo's agent was reported to have been paid 20 to 25 million euros for his part in the forwards move to Juventus. And Fernando Filicevic, Alexis Sanchez's agent, received 15 million after his client joined United. So, I mean, crazy numbers. But what it says here basically is, it's unlawful and going to be challenged in the courts. Everyone is up in arms about it. We've been in touch with the European Association and they are too. It is anti-competitive. In old legal language, it's restraint of trade. You can't restrict somebody's earnings like that. FIFA promised they would consult with all parties and just not the truth. And that's just not the truth. They have not consulted with us. The new rules on the loan market will tackle clubs who stockpile talent and limit them to sending 8 players out on loan from 2021, drop it to 6 players in 22-23. So... well, there's going to be conjecture, isn't there, from the dissenting voices, from the agents and the people who represent the agents and saying that, as you say, freedom of trade and all the rest of it. But, I mean, which is worse? You have to balance out which is worse. Is it worse to be handing out 40, 50, 60 million quid of a transfer fee to an agent, or is it worse to restrict that to 10% of any transfer fee? I mean, you'd like to think morally wise.
But also, I mean, we have got... the other side of this is the terrible financial circumstances faced over the summer by Bury and Bolton.
Absolutely.
And you think if this much money is sloshing around in football, why is so much of it sticking to the fingers of the agents when actually it's being paid out of... the fact that the Premier League paid commission of over £250 million to agents is just obscene.
Yeah, it is absolutely obscene. And, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong personally with restricting the numbers on this. I mean, it's difficult to know exactly how you balance out how much an agent is entitled to. And I think if you say, well, it's 10% maximum, the agent knows where they stand. I mean, they might not like it, but it's still going to be earning a lot of money. The guy getting over 40
million from the Pogba deal, how must Pogba feel when he thinks, well, actually, I'm going out there, training, working hard, making sacrifices, loving it and enjoying it, being handsomely rewarded, but matey boy over there is copped for almost £1 million a week, and once the deal's done, he doesn't do anything more, does he?
Yeah,
you're right. In place, and he's pushing around wheelbarrows of his cash and lighting cigars with £50 notes.
Absolutely, and I think he would probably say, well, I got you the best deal I could possibly get you in terms of wages, in terms of length of contract.
And by the way, mate, you did quite well for yourself with representing both Juventus, Man United and Pogba.
Well, absolutely. So we'll see what happens with this. I mean, it'll be interesting to see whether any kind of enforcement is made from the authorities, whether FIFA do indeed step up their plan to do this. I personally would be in favour of it, because I don't like this whole idea about this super agent and nonsense like that. I do agree that agents have an important part to play in terms of looking after their clients. They're almost responsible for the day-to-day running of footballers now. It's like having a daily aid, isn't it? That someone who kind of looks after all your domestic affairs at times. When some agents are just involved in transfers, others are involved in kind of setting up chefs and buying cars and all sorts of weird and wonderful things that the players ask them to do. So
yeah, that's like being a battler, mate, valet,
exactly.
Your posse, that kind of thing, part of the crew. That's different. But to say, oh, by the way, I'm representing your old club, I'm speaking on behalf of your new club, and I'm going to get the best deal for you, that would seem to me to be, at the very least, contradictory.
Yes, it is. It's split loyalties, isn't it? You're absolutely right. And I think that's where the problem lies. And I think that's why there certainly needs to be, if nothing else, it's proven there needs to be more transparency in this, and there needs to be some kind of clearer messaging going out, because at the moment it looks very, very convoluted.
And good luck with transparency and the word and the organisation FIFA in the same sentence. Whatever happened,
the word agent as well.
Whatever happened to that unpleasant old oil slick Sepp Blatter? I know he had to step down after years of being treating as...
Well, he's sailed off into the sunset, hasn't he? I mean,
to spend more time with his money.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's got plenty to choose from, hasn't he? Let's be honest.
But there were FBI investigations into some FIFA members. Isn't one bloke refusing to leave Trinidad or something?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. There was a lot of criminal proceedings being taken against a lot of members of FIFA. It all stemmed from the bidding process for the World Cup in 2018. That the USA thought they were in favour of, and obviously it went to Russia, and then 2022, which the USA thought they were in favour of, and it went to Qatar.
And you don't mess with the FBI, as they proved when they turned up early doors at those hotels in Switzerland.
Absolutely. I think they like to think now, FIFA, that they've had cleared out all that sort of dead wood, as it were, all that kind of all the problems.
Are there no repercussions or recriminations or criminal charges for the people who may have been wetting their beaks, as they say in Sicily.
There has been some criminal proceedings taken against a lot of these former members. There's been huge amounts of fines. I get the impression, I'm not sure the exact number, but there's been a few that have been handed prison sentences as well. So there certainly has been some form of punishment, but, whether or not it's really sufficient.
But old septic blatter rolls on, doesn't it?
It certainly does, yeah.
Okay, so more still to come here on the Extra Time show. It's Talk Sport. It's me, Paul Ross. We are going to be dipping our toe into the worldwide weird area of the programme. We're going to be speaking to somebody featured in a Netflix documentary who agrees with Carl Froch, former world champion boxer, that the Earth is flat. Details on that on TalkSport after this.
TalkTalk Business Superfast Fibre. Average speed 67 megabits per second. For sparks, electricians, chefs and beauticians. With a 365-day UK contact centre. Rated great on Trustpilot. By builders and brickies, accountants and techies. Fibre broadband for every business. Now only $23.95 a month. Excluding 20% VAT. With no connection fee on a 24-month contract. Offer ends 29th of September. Call 0333 0605 811. TalkTalkBusiness.co.uk. For butchers and bakers and wedding dressmakers. T's and C's apply.
Hi, I'm Leo Martino. I'm the guy that bought you the Hedgehog gutter brush. And our latest clever product, the Hedgehog Easy Air Wedge, has just got even better. It's now been officially tested to lift up to a massive 140 kilos. If you fit doors, windows and cabinets for a living, you'll wonder how you ever got on with that one. The new, improved Hedgehog Easy Air Wedge. Pump it, lift it, square it. Now up to 140 kilos. Available from builders merchants nationwide. Hedgehog Easy Air Wedge. Get one in your toolkit today.
At Kia, we know that business customers are looking for stylish eco cars, which are great to drive and cost-effective. That's why with the 48-hour Eco Range test drive, you'll experience the award-winning Nero family. Available in self-charging hybrid, plug-in hybrid, and fully electric, as well as our best-selling SUV, the Sportage, now available as a mild hybrid. So whatever your business needs, we've got a Kia for you. Book your test drive before the end of October at kia.com/UK.
It's fully charged, electrifying winning all this week with Livewire's Hawksby and Jacobs when we play electric sporting moments on TalkSport with CEF, your electrical experts. Simply answer questions about electric sporting moments and you could win a brand new Klein toolkit, including a DeWalt Combi Drill and SDS Twin Pack and up to £500 in cash. Don't miss electric sporting moments all this week from 1 on TalkSport with CEF. Pick up a copy of the brand new CEF trade catalogue from 391 stores nationwide.
Game day this Saturday.
Chelsea versus Brighton. Kick-off 3 p.m. on TalkSport 2.
Official broadcast partner of the Premier League.
Worldwide weird.
So it was front page news early this week. A story from the world of sport, but also a story with a twist. A thought-provoking story on the front page early this week of the Daily Star. Boxer Carl, as in Carl Froch. The Earth, he says, is 100% flat. He is, of course, as we know, former world super middleweight champion. He says the entire planet has been fooled, apart from those people like him who are what's called flat earthers, has been sold a lie. He refuses to believe proof from the US space agency NASA or space entrepreneur even Elon Musk because they are in the little clique hiding the truth. And he is not alone in those beliefs. Other people share that belief. And in fact, it wasn't so very long ago, I saw a fascinating Netflix documentary called Behind the Curve. And in that, I got to know a man called Mark Sargent who talks about exactly this area. We can talk about the Flat Earth Society now as we welcome to TalkSport Mark Sargent. Good morning, Mark.
Hey, good morning. And by the way, I got to say, this is my very first sports show.
Okay, well, welcome. Are you a sports fan, Mr. Sargent?
I am a sports fan. I mean, I don't follow a lot of UK sports, so like when Freddie Flintoff came out as one of us, I didn't know who he was initially. I had to look him up, and this boxer, I only found out about him about 24 hours ago. So, wow.
Okay, so tell us, please, why you think the Earth is flat, or why you have questions, and who benefits from pretending it is a globe?
Sure. How much time do I got?
Take your own time. We've got 15 minutes or more even.
Okay, 15 minutes. And by the way, thank you for inviting me. I know it's late for you guys. What, 3 a.m?
It is. We're like vampires over here.
Yeah, it's only 7 p.m. over here. So the fact that I'm doing a sports show in the UK at 3 a.m. is amazing. Okay, so I looked into it in 2014, and I hated it. I hated Flat Earth, and sometimes I still hate Flat Earth. And I started out like everybody else. I tried to debunk it. I tried to disprove it. I tried to blow it out in a weekend. It's like, yeah, you know what? It's stupid. I should be able to solve this. Flat Earth. Everybody knows it's not true, right? And then I started looking into it, and more strings and threads started unraveling to where 9 months later, I made a series of videos called Flat Earth Clues, which put the idea out to the internet hive mind that says, you know what? I can't prove the globe in a court of law anymore. Here's why. Prove me wrong. And so I'll give you my 5 quick bullet points. Ready?
Go on then.
Okay. So there was a German television team that got a hold of a Georgetown astrophysicist, and they said, okay, give us your 5 best scientific points, and we'll send it to him, and so that way you guys aren't stepping on each other's toes. I go, okay, fine. My 5 quick points. First off, long distance photography, which is 10 years ago, you could have said, oh yeah, the boat goes over the horizon. It goes hull first, it's gone forever. I go, yeah, 10 years ago, you could have said that. Now with HD technology, with cameras with very powerful zooms, you can now bring these boats back into frame quite easily, and you can bring them into frame at ridiculous distances. Well, if the curvature of the Earth is 8 inches per mile, how is that even possible? We're shooting long distance photography, which is way beyond the curve.
Isn't that simply because the focal plane of the lens is like a tangent on the Earth? I mean, a circle is made up of a large number of straight lines if you look at tangents.
Well, yeah, but eventually, whatever object it is, I don't care if it's a lighthouse or a landmass or whatever it is, eventually it's going to be on the other side of the hill. And if you want to claim like refraction or atmospheric lensing, that's one thing, but HD technology has changed that to where the boat is crystal clear, and you can see the bottom of the boat where it hits the water in most cases. It's staggering to me. All right, let me rattle them off because I know we're not going to be able to do much in 15 minutes. So second one, gravity versus the vacuum of space, which is how is our atmosphere still with us?
Yeah.
If the vacuum of space is so powerful, and you're going to say, well, it's gravity. It's got to be gravity. I go, fine. Here's a quick little thought experiment. Make it real easy for people. You're sitting in a room, and let's say you have a second floor above you. I don't know if you have a second floor above you right now, but let's say you turn that into a vacuum chamber. You put a cork in the ceiling, and you pop that cork. What happens? It's instant. It's violent. The air equalizes with the vacuum, and you might black out and you might die. And my question to you is, okay, why didn't gravity keep the air in the room where you're in right now?
Well, it would do because we have a magnetic core to the planet Earth. They don't have one on Mars, hence lack of atmosphere. It's the magnetic core, not gravity.
Well, either way, why didn't you know full well if there's a vacuum chamber above you, that air is going up. So why didn't gravity keep it in your radio station?
Well, because again, above the Earth, with respect, I don't think you're comparing like with like there. I see with the analogy, but actually the atmosphere does dwindle and reduce. There's not a sudden pop because it dissipates as we go higher.
It defies the law of thermodynamics, which is pressure needs a container, period. That's why it says contents under pressure. If it's a hard container, there's stress. If it's a soft container, it turns into like a basketball or a football or whatever ball it is. It inflates. In fact, astronaut suits defy that on top of it. It's like an astronaut suit should go as rigid as a basketball or as rigid as a football in your case. And it doesn't. It's absolutely bendable, flexible, and they will not explain whatever technology, this magic technology that existed in 1979 to do that.
Okay, so that's point number 2. What else have you got for us, Mark?
Number 3, eclipse shadow, which is the eclipse shadow. I don't know if you guys get eclipses. I know it's cloudy where you guys are a lot of the time. But in the United States...
we have the sun too, Mark, you know.
I know.
The sun shines all over this beautiful globe.
I know. I was just over there, as a matter of fact. And I did see the sun. Actually,
well, in fact, there was a conference over in this country I think you attended, wasn't there?
Yeah. And forgive me if I butcher the pronunciation. Kidderminster?
That's perfect.
Perfect. Well, okay. And I did street activism in Belfast and Dublin and Cardiff. I flew at too many airports, but it was a lot of fun. Anyway, so the eclipse shadow, if the moon is 2,000 miles wide, the blackout zone, that blackout zone that crosses whatever country, it's only 70 miles wide, which is a massive decrease. It's like you walking next to a building and your shadow turns into the size of an action figure. We don't see that in real life. And you say, well, the moon convexes the shadows down to this point, kind of like a magnifying glass in a way. I go, okay, fine. then why doesn't the Earth do that when the Earth is in front of the sun? Meaning, the Earth is 8,000 miles wide. The blackout zone should be 4 times as large, give or take. That means there should be a blackout zone on the moon about 250 miles wide. You should see this big dot crossing the moon, and we never ever see that. We see either a blood moon, with that giant curve going across it, or the waxing and waning crescents. We never ever see that. Number 4, moon temperature, which is super, super weird, and I didn't even know about this until it was a year into flat Earth, which is the moon generates a cold light. The moon is self-illuminating, same as the sun. So the sun would be like an incandescent light bulb, and the moon would be an LED bulb. And what I mean by that is, I'm fortunately going to do it for Fahrenheit, not Celsius for you guys. So it's 90 degrees in the sun. Fahrenheit is 80 degrees in the shade because whatever object is blocking some of the sun. We all know that. Whatever's in the shade is going to be cooler. Unless it's in the moonlight. And then it's the exact opposite. So if it's 50 degrees in the moonlight, it's up to 13 degrees Fahrenheit warmer in the moon shade. And we can test this all day long with a $20 point-and-click infrared thermometer. And not only that, but if you take a magnifying glass to a sunlight, right, you can burn things like ants and paper and stuff like that. But if you take a magnifying glass to moonlight, it even gets colder than what it does normally.
I've never heard that before.
I hadn't either. Now, does that absolutely prove a flat Earth? No, of course not. But it absolutely blows away the relationship between the sun and the moon. Again, you guys can go out to the hardware store, buy this and check it yourself if you can actually see the moon at night. Last but not least, the Van Allen radiation belt trap question, which is, simple question, you can ask any astronaut or anybody in science, which is, are the Van Allen radiation belts deadly? Yes or no? Could
you remind us and certainly remind me what the Van Allen radiation belt is?
Okay. So in 1958, a NASA scientist, 1959, a NASA scientist named Van Allen said that there's this huge, thick layer of radiation that's surrounding the world, kind of like a big pillowy donut that's thousands of miles wide and super deadly, and no one should ever go up there. And then the Americans decided to go through it anyway. And he said, well, we're just going to go really, really fast. And it's like, okay, your best speed is 17,000 miles an hour. You're going through something that's like 50,000 miles thick. And you're making round trips. You're going to the moon and back. And nobody died. Nobody got radiation poisoning. Nobody even got cancer. And there's still 5 of these guys walking around today, including Buzz Aldrin. So are they deadly? Yes or no? Well, I mean, and you used the only shielding you can use for radiation is either gold, super expensive, lead, or a whole bunch of water, all of which are really, really heavy. That's the point. They're really, really dense. Well, you can't put that on any sort of aerodynamics. It's like putting an anchor on the top of any rocket. It's ridiculous. So you did it without shielding. And so it's like, okay, well, they're not deadly. And then I say, okay.
Let me catch in for a second. I mean, I remember reading, we did a lot on this station this year. It's like the 50th anniversary of the moon landing. And one of the things we learned about that was, of course, all the various doomsday theories about what was going to happen when we went into space, about radiation. It inspired Stanley to create the Fantastic Four because of gamma rays or cosmic rays. And a lot of that turned out to be hypothetical piffle.
And I'm right there with you, except that NASA, at the end of 2014, put out a video when they were talking about their Mars program. It's called Orion Trial by Fire. Orion is their name of their Mars project, which is never, ever going to get finished. And they said, and this is an elaborate video where they're saying, oh, yeah, by the way, we're not going to test any manned capsules because we haven't solved the Van Allen radiation problem yet. And it's like, what are you talking about? You solved it perfectly. You solved it perfectly in the 60s with old technology. Now, unless your technology literally...
Hello, Mark. Can you hear us? Oh, we seem to have lost him. We'll try and get him back on Skype or on the phone. Intriguing stuff, though, was it not? And I'd forgotten that Freddie Flintoff has expressed his doubts about the world being a globe. It could be round and flat, but a globe is a different thing, isn't it? So, if you've got any thoughts on this one, share them with us. Maybe you agree with what you've heard from Mark so far. I mean, an awful lot of the science stuff is above my pay grade and my academic capabilities, because I failed my only science O-level. Get me before GCSEs, which was physics. And I've read, as we all have, read a bit about going to the moon, read a bit about some of those things. And I wonder how you would prove it's a flat Earth. I suppose he's going to say they would need a flat Earth rocket program, which would effectively then... I mean, my big question about this is, and it's like, a member of the team here disputes, and a member of my old team on Talk Radio disputes that we ever went to the moon, okay? And my question will be on that one, cui bono? Who would benefit from that falsehood? But let's get back to Mark. Well, before we get onto the moon, Mark, so you were talking about so we've got that through, so the Van Allen belt, why would NASA get that wrong? And if so, did that mean that the likes of Buzz Aldrin did not go through the Van Allen belt?
Yeah, I firmly believe that the entire Apollo program, the entire NASA program has been a sham since minute one.
But who would benefit from that, and who would benefit from keeping it secret now? Because with the collapse of the Soviet Union, you know, these things need to be kept secret. Hello, Mark, can you hear me? I think we'll try one more time on the phone. Let's forget the Skype. We'll try one more time on the phone, and then we might have to leave him and get him back another night. I want to make sure he feels he's had a fair shake, because he's a fascinating guest. And as he said, he was in this country relatively recently. He was talking at various conferences. They did some kind of demonstrations, or not a protest exactly, but to try and open our minds to this. The curious thing for me is that we are going back to pre-Galileo type views of the world and the Earth's place in the world, and before we thought that actually, A, the world was round, and B, that, you know, we go round the other way around. Any joy on Mark? Can we try and get him back? Okay, we're going to try and dial him on the phone now. We're going to take the briefest of breaks, and then more from Mark Sargent. And then after that, phone lines permitting, we are off to Uruguay here on TalkSport Extra Time.
You can get all the opinions in the world, but nothing will be as convincing as your own gut feeling. It's time to trust your instincts and heed your hunch.
Get all the latest form and odds from Betway's betting expert every weekend on Game Day Warm-Up. Saturday mornings from 9 on TalkSport with Betway. Heed your hunch with Betway's 4 to score for a free chance to win up to £250,000. 18 plus, terms and conditions apply. BeGambleAware.org.
Millions of people are missing out by having a current account that doesn't pay them any interest on their hard-earned money. TSB offers interest to all their Plus account customers for no monthly fee. Plus, you can stop your friends and family missing out by recommending the Plus account to them. And when they switch, you'll both earn £75. Search online or visit your local branch. Terms and conditions apply.
Electricians, the brand new CEF trade catalogue is hot off the press. It's packed with almost 30,000 essential electrical products, all at everyday value prices, including 2,600 new products, all available in store or for next day delivery from cef.co.uk. Geographic exclusions apply. The brand new CEF trade catalogue. Get your copy now and make it an essential part of your toolkit. CEF, your electrical experts.
Winston Wolf here. And there goes another new kid with his shiny new van. You'd bet that chump's the only one getting the special treatment. Well, that's where you're wrong, wise guy. With Direct Line, tradesmen can get 10% off their van insurance when they already have tradesman cover, whether they're new to the game like Hot Wheels over there or a loyal customer, like you. And I like guys like you.
10% multi-product discount with Direct Line for Business. Can your business insurance do that? Minimum premiums apply. Introductory discount. Underwritten by UK Insurance Limited.
Whenever sporting news breaks, TalkSport 2 will be there.
There's the winner. There is the winner.
Exclusive international cricket.
And it's a gold standard innings. 88 metres. See you later. Boom.
Plus live press conferences.
The supporters have been absolutely incredible this season.
What the players are given at the moment has been great.
We've put the pressure on the opposition now.
TalkSport 2, broadcasting now on DAB digital radio, online and via the TalkSport app.
Wow, what a finish.
So we can welcome back to TalkSport the very tenacious, and we thank him for his patience, Mark Sargent, who featured in that Netflix documentary, which I've mentioned, called Behind the Curve. He's recently been on a European tour, sharing his ideas and his evidence, and he's a flat earther. Not to put too fine a point on it. Mark, welcome back. Now, you were saying you believe that the Apollo space project was one big flim-flam inflicted upon the world.
Yeah. And I know I'm American,
but who would benefit? But who would benefit from that, though? And why would people still keep that lie going?
Well, it's kind of a tricky question, but the short answer is because the reason why you would hide it is because it's potentially too damaging to science. And by that, I mean the powers that be didn't even figure this out. Our best and brightest at the time, which was the United States and the Soviet Union, didn't even figure it out till almost 1960. So the question is, do you tell the general public in 1960?
Tell them what did they figure out in 1960?
Oh, what? I'm sorry, what?
What did they figure out in 1960?
They figured out the outer rim at that point, meaning the United States was doing naval expeditions out in Antarctica from 1928 all the way until the late 50s. And that's when all of a sudden they figured out what the world was shaped like. And then they put the Antarctic Treaty in place in 1959 and then militarized space and decided, okay, we're just going to keep a lid on this until we can figure out a good time to introduce it to the public.
But Mark, you and I know that mankind is an animal that likes to communicate. Womankind, we like to communicate, okay? And this information surely will be impossible. I know you could say the lid's not been kept on it because you're talking to me about it, but actually there wouldn't be. Why is the massive industry grown up? They're making documentaries about outer space. Why is there a massive industry commemorating all this? Why don't they simply let it all slide away?
Well, because you have to push space, meaning you have to militarize space to keep the private companies out of it. Meaning you use the private companies as contractors, but make sure at the highest levels it's all military. And I know that you say, okay, there's Virgin Galactic and SpaceX and Blue Horizons and all that stuff. But they only came on very, very recently. For the most part, remember what the Americans did? They went to the moon and back multiple times, like 6 times in 3 years. And then in 1972, they just pulled the plug and said, okay, that's it, we're done. The ratings are low, we're not going back. Good night, everybody, roll credits.
And where did that money go then? Because it was taking up some unfeasible percentage of America's gross domestic product.
Oh, yeah, well, so where did NASA's budget even now is $53 million a day?
If they weren't going into space or to the moon, where was that money going, and why didn't the accountants know about it?
Well, look, secrets can be kept. I mean, look at the Manhattan
on that
Project.
scale, Mark? On that scale?
Sure. I remember, this is something that's so big that you don't, like, I'm saying that 99% of all the NASA employees don't know anything. They're just turning wrenches, polishing capsules, building fuel systems. The rockets are made. The rockets do go up. They probably just ditch them in the ocean. But the only guys that need to know are the telemetry guys. And as far as where the money goes, I don't know, black projects. If I was into NASA's money, I would spend it on all sorts of fun things.
And if they got that kind of money floating around and they're that conspiratorial, how come you haven't been whacked? How come you haven't been silenced? How come you haven't been taken care of?
That is a wonderful question that my peers ask me all the time.
I'm not saying I want that to happen, but I'm just wondering why they wouldn't, you know, the simple solution would be the minute somebody sticks their head above the parapet, lop it off.
Well, in this case, I do think that they're trying. Remember, this is something that they weren't going to keep a secret forever, and I think we're not releasing it. I think they are. I think they're the ones that are actually allowing this to happen. We've been helped by Google and YouTube. We've almost had no resistance from the scientific community, and so I think this is their time. After 50, 60 years, they're like, yeah, you know what? Maybe, you know, think about it. We've got the infrastructure is in place. High-speed internet, social networking, 6 billion smartphones. Everything's ready to go. All they have to do is introduce, I don't know, a new species or something along those lines, and that's it.
So you think they may be kind of getting us ready for softening us up for some huge revelation?
Sure. That's what I would do. I mean, and then I wouldn't necessarily say it would be alien. I mean, you could pass it off as alien, but we're talking about something that is beyond alien technology. In fact, most of the players community doesn't even think of aliens anymore because you can't land on Mars and Jupiter and Saturn because space is just lights in the sky. Okay, you're just looking at pretty ceiling.
Let's end then with, if the world isn't a globe, isn't a ball, then what is it? How is it shaped? Is it like a snow globe or something?
Yeah, perfect. There you go. Snow globe. I mean, I would say planetarium, terrarium, covered sports stadium, but most people know what a snow globe is.
What's beneath the snow globe then? What's below us now? If we're living on a flat surface.
I don't know, because the deepest hole ever drilled is only 8 miles, and that was from the Germans and the Soviets. So we don't even know what's down there. I mean, they say that the core of the Earth is 4,000 miles down. We keep seeing these cross-sections of everything. It's like, really? The deepest hole ever drilled is only 8 miles. So what are you showing us exactly?
You've been a fascinating guest, Mark. Food for thought and then some. This stuff is called Worldwide Weird. Will you come back on and talk to us again another time?
I'd be happy to. Just let me know when.
And when can people find out more about what you believe and what you do and the evidence you've got and your kind of theories? Have you got a website?
Yeah. Just go to Google or whatever search engine and type in Flat Earth Clues, and you will find me.
Flat Earth Clues. You've been a great guest. Yep. That was Worldwide Weird with Mark Sargent. You can see him in the Netflix documentary as well, Behind the Curve. And he was talking to me, Paul Ross, on TalkSport. It's Extra Time. On the way, a postcard from Uruguay. And after that, if today's your birthday, some fantastic sporting anniversaries and sporting birthdays for you on TalkSport.